My dudes, we're getting started here in a second. Getting a few things situated. Right. Switch over. Welcome, my dudes. It's been 1 week. I'm back in town. Was in Poland last time we talked and went through the what if scenario if Bitcoin went to $13 million by 2045. What's that mean? It's a good little live stream. And if anybody wants to catch that, it's still posted. You can see it out on X and on YouTube if you want to catch that one. But we're going to peel back something that's near and dear to my heart, which is GPU mining. It's really it's what started it all for me in mining Bitcoin back in the day, back in late 2010 into 2011, was all GPU mining, and have went through multiple cycles from the launch of Dogecoin back in December of 2013, actually. Dogecoin, I think it was around December 15th, somewhere around there, December 20th of 2013, mining Litecoin before that, with Script when Bitcoin started to move to FPGAs and ASICs, and then moved all the way through the stack with Ethereum in 2015, Ravencoin in 2018. I mean, you have a whole handful of other tokens there. You had Zcash. People were remember mining Zcash when it first came out. And a whole slew of other tokens from Ergo to you guys name it. I mean, I did not get on the Caspa train. We were pretty much headlong into Bitcoin ASIC deployments and building out the coin, building out the structure related to the mining that we're doing now on Bitcoin. So I missed the Caspa piece on the GPU side. I know you can still get into Caspa if you want to spend the money on an ASIC. But there is a multitude of other tokens now that are GPU related. A few that look very interesting to me. BitTensor is one of them. Pretty complex setup. I was actually going to try to get that running ahead of this stream, but it's got a whole bunch of subnets and things you have to configure. That's like its own little discovery, and that would be one that I would love to take you guys with me on that journey. Find some time and just fire up a live stream if you guys are interested in that. Now, this is going to be me discovering on how to get that configured for those various subnets. It's a different way to provide AI compute to a decentralized network, and it's a intricate way to set that up, but that is for another day. That is like its own thing that I have to actually peel back, do some of the research, look at the code and compile essentially the miner. There's a lot to it, but we'll get to that one. But this one today, for the folks that are joining, is going to be just looking at the economics of GPU mining as it sits right now, with a particular use case that I want to cover today is, does it make sense to turn on a GPU miner, especially if you have the sunk cost already in the asset? If you have the GPUs sitting in a box or the miner just, collecting dust, what do you pay for your power? What are you paying to heat your house? And in the, northern climates right now, it's winter. So, if you're in Europe, if you're in America, Canada, you're dealing with cold weather, especially this weekend. For us, it's going to get down into the teens from a Fahrenheit standpoint, well below the negatives on Celsius. And like, what's that look like from the amount of cost from a power? And we're going to take this from a couple different angles today. We're going to take it from an understanding of how much heat actually comes off of a GPU, and how to kind of measure that. And when I say kind of, there's a lot of there's some specificity to when you're calculating BTU, which is the amount of heat essentially that a watt will create and thereby distribute into a given area. But we're going to take some rough numbers and some previous calculations we've done before on how much BTU is put out from a GPU mining rig, and how does that from an efficiency standpoint, where if you had like, let's say, a space heater in a like guest room or something like that in your house, how much heat does that, produce, for like a small space heater that's using about 1200 to 1500 watts of power. And they don't always run, they do up and down based on temperature. Where the GPU rig, you're not going to really vary it on temperature. You're just essentially going to let it cook. And then it's going to heat a room up. And then you can kind of dial back some settings if you want to mine less to control the heat. Or if you don't have enough heat, you can add more rigs to it. But I want to pull those numbers back together with you guys today to where you can do some basic calculations. And I want to make sure we suspend the understanding that this is not necessarily a profit right now opportunity in GPU mining, as more it is to, if you're going to spend capital on heating your place, that this is, and if you already have some sunk cost assets here, I'm not saying go out and buy a whole bunch of GPUs or anything here. What I'm saying is you already have some GPUs setting off to the side. You can actually put those things to work and not have to turn on your heat, because the machine will provide you the heat there. And essentially it's a matter of, can you get to break even on, let's say, 12 cents or 10 cents per kilowatt, which is what most residential homes in America at least are, varying some areas much higher. I know if you're like in New Jersey, you're probably paying around 22, 27 cents per kilowatt, but certain areas it will make sense. Midwest here, the average rate's around 12 cents. All in, and that's just your residential power rate. And if you do it, especially at night only, let's say in the day you don't do it, you could do a thing where you're down to more around 6 cents per kilowatt. Because again, remember, this context is not necessarily for the GPU mining as much as it is a hybrid of being able to get some heat from it. So let's go through. I'm loving everybody talking about some of the coins and stuff they were mining. Dynex on some of the GPUs, some folks doing, what's that, Exilis solo mining. Some of the fun, man, some of the fun of GPU mining in general, it kind of takes one to know one kind of thing. People that have gotten into this space get into it because it is, one, you can participate with, you're not asking for permission. You're just putting hash rate on a GPU and you're getting a token in response of that. And that token someday may be worth more than it is right now. And that's what we call speculative mining. It is pure speculation. We don't know. The same thing as we didn't know at the time with Bitcoin and Script, with Litecoin and Dogecoin. Dogecoin is a meme, my dudes. And this is before memes were made great again type of thing, where it was purely for the lulz, right? When we were mining Dogecoin, it was because it was hilarious and there was an awesome Reddit community around it that were trying to do positive things in that space. And I think that this is the heart of what GPU mining is. It is a grassroots, anybody can do it. If you have a GPU setting in your gaming computer, a single one, you can participate. It's not a matter of if you're trying to chase profits and you're trying to pay off things. When we used to do this back in the day, it was purely from a participation and what could it be? And now we're seeing the fruits of that, what could it be in labor, of now it's being integrated into society in such a way that even the incoming president is making daily memes on it. It's hilarious to me, my dudes. Like, this is like, what timeline are we in right now that things like Dogecoin and things that came from GPU mining are now seeing huge integration into this space? And then you look at now the spark of innovation that has came from people that have, developed tokens. This is where Ravencoin came from an idea of utility, where Cass was trying to move some, efforts with related to the utility of, in addition, utility. You have Flux, you have a lot of innovation now saying, okay, the memes are cool, my dudes, but we can actually do stuff with this tech. And as a GPU miner, you are in support of that network, right? And for that network, you are compensated in a token. It is not complicated. These are conversations you could have with friends and family everywhere of like, well, what's mining actually even do? Why do you waste money on this? Why are you paying for your power when you're at a loss? And it is a speculative chance that those tokens will be worth a higher value at a later point. But it's also like, what's the adoption of the utility? And do we start to move away from a centralization kind of environment to a decentralization environment? And how does that work within that trilemma? And that trilemma really comes down to, how centralized do you need to be to get the speed that you need to do for the utility to function at a rate that will have mass adoption, versus having something that is a little slower but has way more distribution, and security is your primary security, and the ability not to change that baseline is the primary requirement. The interesting thing is there's tons of tokens that are taking it from different angles, right? And then that allows you to participate with your GPUs and by and large get some reciprocation, like in the winter with the heat. So let's peel back. We have a handful of people in here right now, and I'm going to try to go through of what like a typical GPU's BTU, so it's heat that it's generating, and how to kind of go into calculating that for you can, look at your own situation and see if this makes sense. And, maybe relook at your farm. Maybe you have it in a mining garage, or you have somewhere where you're not really using the heat. You're actually trying to prevent the heat by like putting it in an environment that will perpetually stay cold, like a garage or something to that effect. But like, what's it do from, bringing it into the house? And what do you got to consider? Because there's a ton of new people in this space right now that this is their first foray of looking at, like, how can I participate? Am I buying a GPU? Am I buying an ASIC? Where's the real money at? What's the cost benefit? All those type of things. So I'm trying to keep this in such a way communicated that it is from the understanding that this may be their first experience learning about GPU mining, and like, what are some of the tools? How do you get started? How do you install things? A lot of this world has changed from like the early days, where there is way more support now. The tools and the services have gotten better when it comes to things actually working out of the box. Wizard installers, where you're just next finish and it installs something if you're using something like Windows. And then even on the Linux side, just downloading those OSs and everything being pretty much pre-configured, where you're doing you're not doing anything with the machine, is short of loading up a USB device that you'll plug into your mining rig. And you could also do this on a GPU, single GPU gaming rig. Like, I've helped people and shown a few times in older videos, and it might require a newer video just to keep the content updated, but where you can use any of those mining OSs on your gaming machine and actually shut your gaming machine down, boot off that USB drive, and then run that miner on an entirely separate OS, which is that on that USB stick. So that way you're not really mixing church and state essentially on your like normal build of your computer. What I would suggest, and then people have DM'd me and asked questions like if they could use their laptop. Personally, I would not recommend using your laptop for GPU mining. There was a time and a place where I've done testing on GPU mining. Like this Alienware in front of me right here has a 4090 in it. It's an i9 14900K with a 4090 in it, and it is awesome. However, I would not run this all the time mining with it, just because it's probably going to kill the GPU. There's a little more support you have on a standalone GPU for a computer, where it is not embedded and it's not surrounded by a whole bunch of other stuff. It's a standalone unit. You can also change thermal paste on this pretty easily, and you don't risk burning out the components on a laptop. Integrated GPUs work a little different. They're toned down from an energy standpoint, and you're never going to get the same kind of performance anyways. So if you buy a laptop and you're like, oh, it's got a 4090 in it, I can use that, I would just say some caution there. It is designed to give you, some gaming experience and all that, but it is not designed as a normal GPU. It's toned down from a TDP, which is a total power draw, and a few other things. So stay away from mining on the laptops, just unless you want to risk potentially killing your laptop, and just any other components in it. This is really focused for like if you have a normal gaming computer or you have just some other GPUs, or you see some on Craigslist or something that's like, man, this is super cheap, let me get into this. So some of this also could be for an exploratory standpoint. If you're just finding this video and you're like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to spend some money, it's a hedge versus going out and buying coin. You can always buy coin if you're looking for just the coin, but this is part of the experience to understand on how the cryptocurrency networks work also. So anybody that's interested in this, you can continue to follow along on this. I'm happy to help you out there. I was seeing some comments of different, options. Hive OS, Hobbyist Miner brought that up. Hive OS is really good. They have a lot of built-in baked features that simplify the configuration, and there is a metric ton of support online now to show you guys how to configure the latest flight sheets, which is the configuration for that, and it gets the miner going to where you can point your machine to a particular network. You name a network. We're going to pull up a screen here in a little bit and show you guys some of the networks, but like which network do you want to point it to? And when I say a network, it's a cryptocurrency. And then what's going to be the yields from that versus going through broker services. So you essentially have where you can mine it yourself to a pool, and then you can have it to where you can use a broker service, something like NiceHash. What I would say though is there's been a lot of change since the old days of NiceHash and that, to where now everything is fully KYC'd. And when I say fully, it is like getting set up on an exchange where you have to have, license, documentation, utility bill, all this other stuff. That's not going to be for some people. Some people are just like, yo, bro, I'm just trying to mine. Like, can I just like point my machine to something and not have to go through, like an entire like investigation process to try to mine. This is an unfortunate situation of where the broker services now are having to comply with KYC AML fully. And that is not saying that that's not going to be a thing for everything, but just general participation in decentralized mining. You don't have to do all that. You can literally just download some code, point it towards the network, and put your hardware on it. You'll be the recipient of those tokens for providing hash rate to it. And then from that point, if you move it to an exchange that is centralized and has to comply with AML, KYC, you will transfer your tokens there and go through that one time with them on your conversion side. Or you can use some of the decentralized networks to just exchange those tokens to other tokens that you want to hold on to. And then find services that you're going to use those tokens for that just accept the token. So there are multiple ways to participate, and knowing that there's certain rules and regulations in different countries. This is a worldwide video. Anybody in the world can take this content and force project hardware onto a network, and you're going to get a token. We're all equal when it comes to that. Right. And that's part of the advantage of cryptocurrency networks in general, is that agnostic to what border you're within, you can mine. And even when it's banned, there's people that figure out a way. Do yourself connections, Starlink. There's all kinds of ways to get as a participant. Anyways, we're not going to get into all that. Just trying to give you guys context for all the new guys. So let's peel back real quick on what, the output of a typical GPU, and then how you guys can measure at home to figure out like, all right, I have a 20 by 20 room. It's 20 degrees outside. I want it to be around 70 degrees. What do I need to put in there to maintain temperature? And you can do this through some calculations. There's BTU calculations. Essentially, you take the wattage of what the output of these are and times that by 3.421, somewhere around there. 3.42 will get you your number. That is a genuine, like a rough calculation of the BTU output of your machine. And so if you're comparing that to like a normal electric heater that has a fan on it, that has a heating element that's blowing heat into a room, and it might be, let's say 1300 watts, 1500 watts. If it's a 1500 watt heater, you're essentially putting out about 5100 BTU into that room. So 20 by 20 with 20 degrees outside and 70 degrees inside, you want to maintain 70 degrees inside, you're going to need about 21,000 BTU. So that's about the average. There's a whole bunch of assumptions in there, but that's the rough math, right? So essentially 4 GPU mining rigs running at 1500 watts will heat a room to about 70 degrees if it's like 20 degrees Fahrenheit outside. So that would be like negative, 10 or something and centigrade. I'm not really good at centigrade. If it's at 32 and you're trying to get to 70, it's a little less than that. It's like 17,000 BTU. So about 3 mining rigs would maintain temp in that room. Like for us and for myself at my house, we have a spot that's essentially a 15 by 30, outdoor, like it's a 3-season room. There's windows and everything in there, but it's not ducted in any way. There's no heating or air conditioning in there. And essentially I placed 16 3080s in there, and it almost overheats that room. So those run around, depending on how hard you're running them, they're about 300 watts. You can run them about 250 depending on per card, depending on what you have running on it. But if I was running, like, let's say Ravencoin at full tilt, I'm at 300, 315 watts per card, about 2,200 for each rig. And, the 8-card rigs, you put 2 of those in there and you're putting out more than enough to heat that room. And that, mind you, that room would maintain normally around 40, 45 degrees when it was really cold outside, and it was like close to 80 in there. So that's where you start to get your calculations. So your first step is, what's the output of total power that you're using? This is on your full machine, on your computer, and your GPUs in this case. And that gives you kind of your basic output of power by just doing your calculations like that. So that gets you some basis of like what your requirements are going to be. So let's switch screens here and give you guys kind of a baseline of like, all right, cool story. We know GPUs create heat. Cool on the calculations on having to figure out the BTUs, but like, what are you getting? Like especially for the folks that are new to this, like what are you getting for that? And is it break even? Are you going to spend money because your power is maybe at 12 cents? Let's peel some numbers back real quick and switch over and see what that looks like, my dudes. Let's throw the laptop here. And I know I had one of these up. So we're going to look real quick. Now, mind you, a place like MinerStat, there's Nice Hash has a calculator too. What to Mine has a calculator. There's tons of calculators out there, but we're just going to take a quick snapshot. And again, these are focused on coins that have some level of market liquidity and are on an exchange, and where they can get some rough order of magnitude cost. So a quick ROM on what you're going to get is what one of these mining calculators are. This is not representative of all of the different tokens that are out there that you could mine as a GPU, which gets you into kind of more of those speculative mining where you would find potential for in any kind of great growth in that particular token. You could see, these larger returns potentially. And that's part of the whole concept of speculative mining. You have a new network that was maybe fair market launched, nobody knows about yet, and people watching forums, anytime a new token's coming out, somebody's going to post it somewhere. It used to be on Bitcoin.talk, where if a new token was coming out, the dev team would go out there and say, hey, we're launching this thing. Here's why it's important. Here's essentially the block time and the reward, which gives you at least some calculations that you can figure out, like how much is this going to cost me to operate and support this network, and what's going to be my yield, right? That's still happening with other tokens out there that are not necessarily represented in the calculators. And that's because maybe they're not on an exchange and there's no understanding of how much liquidity is in the system right now from counterparties that are purchasing the token. That is the pure definition of what a spec coin is, and part of some of the fun, my dudes. Like really, like how the degen folks that have no idea what mining is right now are doing it with meme tokens, where people are just YOLOing and losing complete bags because for some reason they're jumping behind there's no hit to like the Gen Zers and the latest version of whatever that is, making tokens and rugging people. This is kind of a version of that. However, there's way more work that has to be done than just spinning up an ERC20 or a Solana meme token, right? There's a network that needs to get built. There's software that needs to be designed that will support a particular algorithm. And if it's a new algorithm, you got to get a mining piece of software that will then work on a GPU. And then there's iterative, updates to that to make it more efficient. A lot more goes on to spec tokens than a meme token. And because of that effort, usually there's a little more participation in it. But who knows? I mean, this is where a lot of different tokens came out. Caspa was this. I mean, for you folks that have been mining with Caspa, knew this when it came out. It was a spec coin and actually got some legs under it, right? So there's Raven was the same way back in 2018. Came out 3-4 cents and then shot to 24 cents. That was a pretty good rate of return for anybody that was holding at that time. Now, subsequently, it's came back down to 2 cents, but if it has another run type of thing, it's still, again, fair market launch coins. This is what I'm talking about. So when I'm quickly go through the profitability calculator here, this is only on things that are established and at least has some liquidity on an exchange to give you a baseline that if you were going to exchange the tokens that you're earning to compensate for your power cost, is it a break-even type of situation from a monetary standpoint, and your byproduct you're actually getting from it is the heat. That's the point of this video. So even if you're in this scenario, a break-even, if you are selling the token, is a win if you're getting your house heated for free, essentially. So that's where this concept is going. So we're going to just take a basic calculation, and I'll use one of these right here. I have a 3080 here, so RTX 3080. I have 8 of these in the back that should be mining, but they're not mining right now. And we're going to calculate real quick what a 3080 does. I also have a AMD card. This is a 6700 XT. It's kind of the follow-on for the 7700 XTs, or 5700 XTs, sorry, which are near and dear to my heart. I love my 5700s. And then I have a 3060 Ti here. We'll take a couple different swipes at kind of what our rate of return is, and does it make sense from a heat standpoint. We'll do both calculations. First, we're going to look at what the yields are. So let's add, not this way. Let's add more, add hardware. Let's do the 3080 first. So this gives you a little countdown calculation here. This really doesn't matter because it doesn't go into the calculation part, but we'll just put it in there anyways. These particular ones are 10 gigabyte rather. Add hardware, and then we're going to add 8 of these and look at what that is from a revenue generation amount. And this is at an electric cost of 12 cents. So It's still more than break even right now at 12 cents per kilowatt. Now, I'll give you guys an idea. Like this back in the day was like $2-3 a card, like in the worst of times on Ethereum mining, right? Ethereum mining, you might be making maybe on 3080s, it went down to like you're making $10 a day on 12 cents. So it is about a 90% drop in if you found some old videos from back in like late 2020, not at the beginning of COVID, but towards the tail of COVID before they went with the proof of stake move, it's about a 90% difference right now of total revenue that you would get from like some 3080s as an example. That's why you don't hear or see a ton of content around GPU mining right now. Is just from a critical mass aspect, it's back down into the spec world, speculative mining world of, maybe just covering cost. Maybe you're just covering the power costs and you're just keeping the return of yield. And here's where I'm going to focus you on right here is like right now, RTX 3080s, it's showing at least from here. Now, again, this is for the folks that are joining late. This is not talking about current tokens because MinerStat does not have everything that's out there. BitTensor, there's a few other things out there that are not represented here because they just don't have the liquidity yet to show their rates of return right now. And BitTensor is a little harder to calculate, and we'll get into that in another video why. But there's other tokens out here that are not represented that people are mining and getting yield on that are speculating that the value will go up at some point. But the main thing I'm looking at right here is what are the yields, the rewards of return. So we'll take an example. It shows that Raven right now on the RTX 3080s has the best rate of return. And if you had 8 of these in a room paying 12 cents, you are going to generate, let's go here and just look up some basic, let's do calculator. So if we have these averaging 300 watts each times 3.42 times 8, we're going to put out about 8,200 BTU from this machine. Now, plus or minus a few factors here based on internal temps, humidity, the fans running at full speed, and where's that heat going comparable to a normal directed, heat source, like if you had like a small electric heater that's actually blowing it into the direction you want. You can think of a GPU mining rig as a radiant heater. It's going to radiate the heat and just heat up that particular area of the room. And then if you want to use a fan to kind of move it around, you have a little bit more to get that there. But the fans that are on these, unless you have the blower style fans on the GPU, which just has that single fan that's up against the GPU and exhausting out the back, kind of like a hairdryer, those are actually some of the best GPUs to use if you're trying to do what I'm talking about of heating a room while you make revenue, right? So if you're looking at this, you're looking at close to 300 Raven coin every day. And at 2 cents, that's where it's getting the math at. Now, speculatively, if you're just paying your power and you're earning those coins and you're getting 297 a day, again, every day is a little different depending on network performance of and your pool that you're on. But let's just average it out at 290 Raven. At all-time highs, that machine's making $70 a day. It's not a bad rate of return. Now, that would turn people on definitely to be mining again. But that's the point of the spec mining concept, is that if you can keep part or partial of your tokens, like what are you left with? Now, that 294 Raven, let's say you are just covering down your cost, right? So 290 Raven times 0.0245, I think is about what it's at right now. So $7.10 is essentially how much that's generating. Let's go back here. Yeah, it's estimating at 753 right now, and it's estimating your cost at 12 cents is about $6.40. So let's just call 753 minus 641. Oops. Just do equals. Messed up here, my dudes. 41 equals that divided by 0.245. I did it again. So that lets you keep about 45 Raven if you were just covering your costs. Now times that by the 24 cents. And essentially that would give you essentially $11 a day in profit if you were covering your costs if Raven never went to all-time highs again. And this is kind of the calculations that you kind of do in the back of the neck kind of calculations. And what I was doing back in the day with like Litecoin, like when I would mine Litecoin back in the day, it was $3 a coin. And right before it switched to ASICs, or really FPGAs, the yields had went way, way, way down. And essentially I was paying every day like $12, $13 over a day in power cost for all the rigs I had running on Litecoin of how much Litecoin I was earning, right, per day. I think I was earning like close to 4 Litecoin a day at that time. Well, and I was paying the power costs. I was just paying all of the power costs, and I was just calculating how much my rate of return was. And I was like, I'm just going to hold on to this for a long time. And that ended up paying off because once the network started getting, it got added to Coinbase. It was kind of a meme for the ever. It was like win Coinbase. But the same thing was something like Raven and some of the other tokens out there, right? Caspa, not on Coinbase also, right? One day, maybe it's going to get added to Coinbase. But like, what is the rate of return that you may end up looking at for? And is that worth it? Or is it just covering down your cost of power? Like if it just covers your cost of power, that's kind of the point. You have already owned at sunk costs. I would not recommend going out and buying GPUs, but if you already have GPUs, this is a way to do it. So those are just some of the raw numbers, my dudes. So let's look at some of these other, some of the AMD hardware. AMD 6700 XT. I honestly don't remember how much on this particular one. I think it's 8 gig. It is 8 gig on this one. There was a 12 gig model too. So on this particular one, let's add 8 of those. And we're looking at 163 Raven and barely making enough. Now, power on those is a little less. We're not going to be using as much power. So the power cost is not as much. And we're earning, so the ratio is actually not too bad. You're making about $1.10 per day on the 3080s. On the 6700 XTs, a little better. Same thing on the 5700 XTs. 5700 XTs have been fantastic with Raven, but and some other tokens, right? So it all comes back down to like what's your cost per day and how much yield are you getting. And if you want to take the chance on some other tokens, I mean, there's many stories of where that's worked out, and then many stories that it hasn't, and you still ended up just getting heat from it. So the byproduct of this in the winter is that you still get the heat, my dudes. So I'm actually curious on because we do have a whole bunch of these 3060 Ti's, of what a 3060 Ti these days right now is doing. If they have it in here. Oh, that's AMD. Hold my dudes. 3060 Ti, and these are not LHR. LHR impacts the total hash rate. Do 8 of those. So it's really close to the same as the 6700 XTs, but using less power. So you can see the yields and returns about 20 more Raven as an example on that one. And again, Raven being the most highest one right now. And this kind of bounces around. Every day you can come out here and check to see, you know, what your differences of yields and output is. And, you know, and if nice hash is nice hash pays you in Bitcoin, you know, you're not getting as much, and their fees and stuff might eat you up. But you know, some people just want Bitcoin. So they're already paying for the pre-conversion, essentially. Normal costs, like if you took the Raven and changed it into Bitcoin, you'd have cost either way, transferring from the network, transferring it to who's going to exchange it for you, exchange fees, transfer fees for the Bitcoin, and then finally hit your wallet. Plus and minus down the stack, you're probably 8 to 9% of fee capture throughout that network. So on both sides. So, you know, there is some consideration on that whenever you're doing those kind of things. Let's switch back to the main camera, my dudes, to get an idea. So I was building a rig earlier that we're going to do for a separate video. That'll be a produced video of, and it's the kind of crawl, walk, run. As I started to build the rig, I started to realize it's been a minute since we built one, and I want to make sure that for new audiences, I kind of go through that process and walk people through what the rig build is, and knowing that some of the footprint has changed, where a lot of the rigs that we have are a lot of open air rigs, and a lot of the newer design stuff now are kind of closed rigs. You don't have to mess with, you know, the actual motherboards are built for it. You don't have to mess with risers as much anymore and all that. So, you know, I'm kind of under the legacy old guard where we have risers, and now a lot of the newer boards already have like the riser built into the board, so you don't have to do that, and they are set up for that. So I might have to pick up a mining case, a newer mining case, and then we'll kind of go through that way as we deploy some of this stuff. But yeah, I'm seeing some of the comments from people still mining with 960, 970s, and 2080s. You know, my dudes, there's definitely a thing about some of the old cards. I mean, we still have a whole bunch of 470, 8 gigs. All the 4 gig stuff's kind of out. But, you know, some of the 1050 Ti's, those sorts of things, crazy. Yeah, I'm seeing quite a bit of people in here too that I haven't seen in a minute. What's up, Techman TV? RTY. New England Crypto, I see you guys out there too, man. That's awesome. Yeah, the calculation stuff, though, I think is where some of the, you know, people want to really understand, like, what's it going to take to kind of heat a room versus just throwing a rig in there. You know, like if you're trying to hit a certain temperature and stuff, you got to understand how the BTU calculation works, and then, you know, apply that appropriately. Happy go broke on clearance items today. Yeah, I hear you, my dudes. So what are you guys mining? Before we'll wrap this up, it's 45 minutes in, kind of explain the process and the calculations there. What are you guys all mining right now? I'm curious. You know, because we were looking at potentially putting one of these things on NiceHash and then putting some directly on Pool, and then doing some spec mining and taking a look at kind of the rates of return, and then looking at how these work with each rig, and then doing one with BitTensor also. You know, the 3090 rig, we have a 8-card 3090 rig that I would like to put on something like BitTensor. Mining Ergo since the merge. Nice, my dudes. I'm actually surprised some of these tokens haven't, you know, started doing merge mining kind of like Litecoin has done. with Dogecoin and Bell's coin. You know, Bell's coin's old. Like anybody has any history of Bell's, Bell's was before Dogecoin. Dogecoins came off of Bell's. So the third token now that you can mine on Script, when you have a Script machine running on that network, you get Bell's token, you get Dogecoin, and you get Litecoin on those Script miners. Right now, those Script ASIC miners. Hello. Is that how that's pronounced? Ilo? Elo? Read through your guys' comments right now. Now, I only see, I think, YouTube comments right now. There are other ones across all three platforms that we're on. It's showing on all three platforms. We're at 243 people. We'll see what we got on YouTube right now, my dudes. Looks like 54 on YouTube, about 16 on Twitch, last I checked, and then a little over almost 200 of you on X. Cedra, FriendCoin, Script Solo. I hear you, my dude. Good luck on that. Does Bells get mined in a full QT wallet as well? I don't think so. Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of stuff about Dynex, and I haven't looked at Flux in a while. I need to maybe get a note with Dan Keller and kind of get caught up where they're at on Flux. I know that there was some potential stuff that they were trying to do on distributed compute, and see how well that's moved forward or not. That'd be a good one. You got Flux, nice, my dude. Yeah, there was a few things we deployed on Flux to make sure that it would run like full nodes. But now that I switched to Umbrel, Umbrel is awesome for like running full node stuff. We did a video on that too, if anybody's looking into like setting up their own full nodes. Sweet, my dudes. Shameless plug behind me. BitsBeGiftin. It's a Merry Christmas, Merry Bit Christmas. Some of the swag that our team has been putting together, my dudes. We're working on getting some adjustments to the way the shipping costs are. Right now, they're kind of high, and it's all because the back end that we use for this is Printful, and they're pretty high on their shipping. So we're working to see if we're gonna have to switch vendors for that. But the quality of the stuff that they make, you know, that we've worked with is pretty good. So yeah, I didn't want the cheapest, you know, shirts and stuff, and essentially we brought the margins down to where really we're not making anything on these. We're, you know, a full sweatshirt for $35. I mean, it's pretty much what it is. I mean, we're not making much on there, but it's trying to get some cool content out there for you guys from a shirts and stuff standpoint. We've had some orders. This beanie's on fire right now. Let me move this up. That beanie right here is we're working on getting all the different tokens. I want to get you know, Litecoin, Dogecoin logos out there too, and get some of those out there for the folks that are out there mining. You guys will see some of that swag out there. Bunga and Cedra. I keep seeing Cedra. I'm gonna have to look into it. I've seen a lot of people. Alphinium. I did mine some Alphinium. I got to find that wallet. I had a handful of rigs on that when it first came out. So I probably got a pretty good bag on that, but just have not messed with it. I was reading some stuff on that when it was first launching. Haven't done anything with CKB myself. And I do have some machines running ETC. We've had some older ASIC miners when they first came out, and those are still running. I did end up losing one of them. I will say all of my, and this is on Voss, Drew, if you're watching, all my little Vosscoin mini miners all died. Like they burned up. I had 4 of them, and all 4 of them are dead. They did not did not last the test of time. So there's some quality issues there on the gold shells. I don't think they spec'd the power adapter correctly because it burned up on the power adapter. Cool, my dudes. Run my old Zotac 1070 Ti Amped Extreme Edition when you need heat for the winter. Heck yeah, my dude. I love those. Those Zotac Amp Editions, that 10 series was awesome. That's cool, my dude. Some GPU content. Some of you guys never said that I would do it again. Like you were like, BBT Carter's only doing ASIC stuff. No. Still supporting the GPU networks, my dude. Always. Shell of cold, heart of it. Nice, Ninja. All right, my dudes. Well, I hope you guys have a good weekend. A metric ton of content. If you're not following us, give us a follow right now. You're going to love the content that's coming out. We have close to 400 ASICs being delivered tomorrow. We have another follow-on, a couple hundred script miners, L9s, L7s, and some more GG1 pluses coming next week. Like at least almost 2 full megawatts of hardware coming that we're going to get deployed this next week. And we're going to be taking you guys through daily vlogs of that. And we're also building multiple sites right now in tandem. I have a building that we're working through right now on design and build. That's going to be 5 megawatts. That'll be in the first part of this year. You guys will start to see some construction pictures around that. So it's a warehouse. It's going to be 5 megawatts. And we're going to take you guys through that and really kind of how we get it done. All the different things that you have to do when it comes to the permitting, finding a location, submitting for special use permits, all of those various aspects of building out a solution. And, we'll take you guys along the ride. So make sure you're following this content. And then as we have additional time with the folks that are here, we're going to put some more GPU content out there for you guys. So we're going to get a few of these machines running on there, do the bit tensor setup, and let's get it done, my dudes. Bitcoin may hit 100,000 today. Keep watching.